we with companies all over the state. They'll come to AURI, to either help us develop a new product, if they need help developing a new product, identify new markets, or say they're working on a process like American Crystal Sugar. We can share some of these names where they want to be more efficient, densifying their beet pulp or something. That's where AURI comes in. So you can look by the displays that we finally got up on the wall. We work in so many areas, but AURI down here, we focus, it's the Bioindustrial Innovation Center. So we focus on agricultural byproducts, grains, feeds, fertilizers. We help in that area. AURI's got a whole nother section where all they do is help companies develop food products, help with nutritional labeling, because that's a big thing. If you want to get into farmers markets or even on the store shelf, you got to have that nutrition label. We host a lot of events bringing industry together to talk about new ideas, like what's innovative, what's growing in the state. So we're always cutting edge on that side. We call that our webinars. We have industry thought leader groups, and we're involved in things like that. Where I was a little bit concerned is the focus that you guys have, broadband connection. But what I'm going to do is, as we walk through the building, after we give you a little more overview, talk about how it affects us. We don't do the field trials. That's where the university comes in. So we help clients with applied research. So if they have an idea or a product, how do you either develop it or move it into the marketplace? Where the university, they do the science, where they'll do the feed trials, they'll do the field trials. Hey, this fertilizer works better than that fertilizer. So we may have a client that we help develop product for, and then they need to go to the university to actually validate it. Mm-hmm. How does it perform? So this is kind of interesting too. Any intellectual property that a client brings to us, it stays theirs, and that's a big thing. We don't have any handle on it. If we work with that client to develop a new idea or new process, they'll have us on the patent, but it is still their ownership. And that's a cool thing. Yeah. But anyway, should we go for a walk?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to give you a heads up. We're supposed to be over at S-Rock at about 12:15.
Yep.
And after that, we are going to visit a local farm. And Jeff Hilschnitz, who does a lot of precision agriculture, just so you know kind of what's on our radar and what we're connecting, what you're doing with.
Good. Because I brought that up to Lisa, and we farm also, and you talk about broadband connections in the country, what you've been blogging about and writing about since 2007, that is such a weak spot. Yeah. And even for us, I'll get to the tour, but even for us, we're in southern Minnesota, we're down by Good Thunder, so I get to drive through Alma City every day. Oh, yeah. They haven't put a roundabout in there yet because the traffic hasn't gotten that bad. But if you haven't, do you two know where Alma City's at?
It is.
There's a church there. My parents actually got married in that church.
St. John's. It is literally a stop and road. There's not 15 people there.
There's one
stop sign. Apparently a sign.
Yeah, there is. There is. Yeah.
And I do stop at it every day. But anyway, you take these rural areas that we do not have the coverage. It is so hard to get high-speed internet, and that's just a challenge. And we're southern Minnesota. I mean, you start going up to Roseau, Hallock, northern Minnesota, there are so many dead areas. And we have enough of them down here, but just where you don't have the coverage. And when you look at the technology nowadays, and that's why it's fun that you're going to a farm, if you ever see a planter going down the field and the markers are up, so they're not using the markers, and all of a sudden that tractor stopped, you know what? They probably lost coverage. Yeah. And they're stuck. Mm-hmm. They're not stuck, but the younger generation is so used to having that technology. My joke is put your marker down and go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that'll be a good visit. But let me share what we do here, and we'll make sure you're out of here on time.
We'll let you guys follow directly because I've seen the tour.
You've seen it, yeah. Well,
You know,
and you're coming back. That's a good sign.
I love it every time I get a chance.
I could just go on and on. So I'm gonna make it quick in here so we get out there, but you know, when you look at the new technologies that are rising, you're hearing about biochar, you know, black carbon. You know, we do a lot in that area. And here's some examples of biochar. And one of the ethanol plants, CVEC up in Benson, Minnesota, they were actually combusting corn cobs in a gasifier. They're using that energy within their ethanol plant. They were. Then natural gas got really cheap and they shut it down. But at the time, one of the byproducts after they combust it was a char. And it's like, what do we do with it? How do we get it into a form where we can continue to add value to it? And using it as a soil amendment was something we actually did with the university down here. Long story short, we didn't see any results because our soils are so high in organic matter. You go to northern Minnesota, or as you move to the equator, through Iowa, you know, into Kansas, you see more benefit from those products. Then we do a lot with just all the commodities. You know, like corn. You can pellet the corn stalks. You can use the corn stover for energy. Here are corn starch pellets that companies are using to make your packing peanuts out of that dissolve. So if you've ever gotten a package and you take those packing peanuts, hold it underwater, and they turn to mush, that's what it is. And this company now is actually, they're expanding, they're doing more packaging materials. Instead just the peanuts, everybody wants to get rid of plastics and PFAS in our environment, so we're seeing a lot of interest in that. And I think the day is coming where if you wear a shirt like this, we heard this from the textile group at the USDA, there will be a label in it. If it's rayon, if it's nylon, you will be responsible for properly disposing of it, just because of the environmental plastics that are around. And that leads us to, oh, and there's so many here, but that leads us to, let's go this direction. The work we're doing with hemp. So AURI, we don't do anything with the CBD craze, or now it's the THC craze. We don't do that. Our focus is on the hemp fiber. And right now in the lab, we have a decorticator. We got that in years ago, which separates, here, camera, show that. Here's the herd. So a hemp stalk, oh, and I won't go into everything because we could you know, there's a hemp stalk.
Yeah, that's hemp fiber, yeah.
So what needs to be done to add value?
Yeah, this is all hemp.
So that is the herd.
Yep, so this is the aftermath. Like,
Okay.
You run it through a machine to break off that woody fraction on the outside, and that's how you end up
Feel
with
it, look
your
at it.
clean fiber. And the big push is to how do you use that as a natural fiber? Can it be cost competitive with the rayons, with your other fibers? And what we're finding is you'll probably never see it in a woven material. I know, and we can't say names like Carhartt and stuff. We're not allowed to. But I better be careful.
Scratch that, scratch.
But, you know, you got so many different companies, you know, that are looking at how do we get to these natural fibers, but they have to withstand wear, the washing, all that. I see more going to your non-wovens, but then the herd, the woody part, that's being used for bedding, it's being used for building materials. Minnesota, we have a company up, oh my goodness, the plant is like 3 football fields. They're up by Kimball, in between Hutch and St. Cloud. All going to be on hemp processing. There's another group going up possibly by Benson. There's one just over the border in the Dakotas, so that's a growing area. Another big area that we're always working in was biodiesel, ethanol, and that kind of is what this demonstrates in our lab. We have a lab that can press different oils, clean them, and then, you know, use it for food testing, food applications. In this sample, you have clean soybean oil, but when you make biodiesel, here's the crude, and when you make biodiesel, you end up with glycerin. That is a byproduct, and that's a product that we did a lot of work with. Because that glycerin actually has the same energy value as corn. So when corn was high priced, now it's dropping again. You could take products like that and use them in calf starter feeds or whatever, because it's kind of a sugar and an alcohol blended together. And you have glycerin. Moving it into like your shampoos, your toothpaste, that market's so saturated. And there's a lot of glycerin that was coming out of biodiesel plants, so you had to find a better use for it. And then one more thing, and then we're going to move on. Biocomposites. But I got to point this out, because this has been a mainstay for 30-some years. If you go into Target, PetSmart, Petco, Pet Expo in Mankato, you'll see Sweet Scoop. We've been working with them for 28 years. It's a cat litter made from wheat.
That's what my cat prefers.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of
You are kidding me.
making Sweet Scoop.
So we have done,
Okay, you're saying that one again.
we have done all their product development for years. So I have tested, we've made synthetic cat urine, we test the clumping,
Do you want
clump
cats?
hardness, know what they actually use real cat scent to validate it too. So if you want to know how to make synthetic urine, we can tell you. Because it also controls ammonia unbelievably, and it's a natural product. So a lot of vet groups will use it because instead of, say you have an animal that needs radiation, they have to save their litter. Where here you can flush it, it's biodegradable. And it was made from wheat that could not be used in the human food chain. And when they kept growing, we had to come up with some other things and test that it has the same clumping performance, sorbency. We even had Animal Planet come down and do a whole story from California on cat litter. But
it gets lentils of approval.
oh,
There you
I'm
go.
glad to hear that. Oh, and then this RPM Net, that's a feed supplement that we worked with Milk Specialties on, and right now they said, oh my gosh, this was months ago, there were thousands of cows per day utilizing that product. No one has any idea that's coming out of Waseca, this development. We're the best kept secret. The ones we talk about, we can talk about. There's a lot of projects that you won't hear us say anything about. But
So
anyway,
if I happen to have a sticker of my cat that you're welcome to have.
I am going to share that. I actually have a call with,
Nice.
because Targeted Pet Care owns Sweet Scoop now, and they own 3 clay plants, or 2 clay litter plants, and then 3 natural litter companies. Pet Care's probably the biggest. I'm gonna set this here, because I am going to share it. I gotta. Well, let's go back here. So when we talk about broadband coverage, our main IT guy, Ray, we should have had him come down here. Because when you have a building like this, now it gets more into what are you guys interested in? What is our needs, as a company? You're gonna see around the building a little boosters all over. But, even more so since COVID, and I hate to always refer to that, but that's really where we saw the change. We're doing so many more meetings now on Teams or Zoom or what have you. Well, obviously the demand for broadband capacity just exploded right there. And you're the computer guru, you should be talking about that.
You can keep going.
I'm just sitting here stealing along. But coverage was a problem, even in town here. And then when you have a building like this, because we have a bunch of offices upstairs, we have our offices down here, and that hasn't even tapped on the technology part of it yet. So what we were doing last week, and you got to peek out the door, and then we'll walk through here. So one of the things we had over at Clear Lake Press is an anaerobic digester. That is what's actually in this trailer. And we'd walk in there, and if you want to see technology and equipment, It is in that trailer. So what we had to hide it back here. Plus Dan didn't want it blocking other semis. But what we have in there are two 1,200-gallon tanks, digester tanks, and a whole lot of plumbing and a whole lot of shutoffs and nightmares. So this thing, we're starting it up on Thursday again. We were running it for 16 months for a group out of Denmark. So we were having calls with Denmark. They were coming here. They're looking at putting 3 digesters in Minnesota. This thing is so busy. I mean, it's booked up until next year. So us having it down, trying to get it in here, now get it up and going again, there is a sense of urgency there. But in that digester, what you're testing every day is you'll load the manure or the feed waste product in the back, and then you're running to look at how much methane are you generating per day, how much CO, how much CO2, how clean is the gas, and then how healthy are the bugs in the digester. That's what we're teaching the groups that are coming to us, because they want us to make the mistake first before they would crash one of their large digesters. And the group we were working with, they were mixing poultry litter from Jenny O in with dairy manure. Poultry litter is high in ammonia. Ammonia is toxic to the methanogens and the bugs that produce the methane. So basically we were running it and seeing how much poultry litter can you incorporate into a digester before you kill it. But when we talk about technology, everything is going to automation. You can do it manually, but I wish we had them installed. The gas analyzers that you can program every minute, every half hour, every 12 hours to basically take a gas whiff, tell you how much methane you have, CO, CO2. That's everything that's going in here now, the flow meters. But all of that, if we want to get rid of the wired connections, it all needs broadband connection. So think of the capacity, think of what you need. And that's where the world's going. So this is a perfect example. We don't have lights. I'd love to show it to you in there because you wouldn't know you were in a livestock trailer. Here's these containers, piping, and we got a lot of analyzers to put in and things to upgrade before Thursday. Before the fun starts. Come on in, it's cold out here. We did get C&J Masonry to come pour some thicker concrete here.
I was going to say, this is brand new.
Yeah, they had a pad. Put this trailer on it.
Oh, yeah.
We had to tear out part of it and add more.
So much fun to see it all.
So then another thing we added. So in this building, we did not have we needed a food grade lab. So I want everybody to see it here. So when we could start moving in January, right away we had a contractor start building the food grade lab. It actually sits separate from the building, and you can see we have in-floor heat, so to prevent condensation, the bottom can actually breathe. That's just trivia. But let's see, come on in.
Well,
And once we're operating it, we'll we are using it. You don't need a hairnet or anything in here. I'll just show you.
so it's all right?
Yeah, because we'll have a shoe disinfectant too. We were getting so many requests to produce food grade oils, for testing, for cooking with, flours for cooking with, and then cleaned up oil where it looks just like what you'd see on Hy-Vee's shelf. Well, obviously we can't be making fertilizer or feed or dealing with fish waste one day and then all of a sudden doing a food product the next. So this is an inspected facility, this room. So there's separate guidelines just when you work in here that you have to follow. But one of the things we do, this is very cool. Here is the oil press. So a lot of the new seeds, new cover crops that the university is looking into, like pennycress, camelina, if you've heard those in the news, they're oil seeds, so they're like soybeans, but they're meant to be a cover crop. You harvest it while you can interseed your new crop in the spring, then harvest these off the top. But you put the seed in here, it's a double barrel press. The meal comes out this end, The oil comes out this end. That meal, so after you take the oil out of it, here's a quiz, I just got to do it. What do you think you use the meal for?
I think fertilizer, food,
You kidding, people are looking at it as food.
yeah, cattle food,
Feed,
hog food.
yep, feed's a big one.
Yeah.
Because think of soybean meal, when we take the oil out of soybeans, you know, that oil is going for biofuels primarily now. Some cooking, but that's such a small, big picture, that's such a small thing. But all of the meal, everything that's left, that is your primary protein source for livestock, not for humans. So it's the same thing, we'll test that meal, we'll look at, is there any anti-nutritional characteristics in it that could hurt the animal or that could hurt their performance? What's the protein levels and amino acid levels? But then that oil, you know, it's not purely clean when it comes out of here. So then we have, and this is what they use in the industry. This is just a smaller version. Yeah, you beat the hand model. We have the filter press where you can put different filter plates on the bottom, put the oil in there, put it under pressure, and it comes out just crystal clear. It's amazing. And if you have an oil that has a color you don't like, there's additives you can put in, natural ones. If there's an odor in the oil, like a chlorophyll smell, you can actually mix activated charcoal in with the oil. This is done. It doesn't come through in the oil, but it helps take that odor out.
So you add it in and then filter it back
And
out
then
after
filter.
it's absorbed the odor.
Yep, because it gets hung up on these.
Sure.
These are very fine mesh filters, and it gets hung up on those filters. And then another thing we do, you'll see stone mills, grinding mills, we'll make flours. So besides just oil, we'll do produce flour for food trials and various things with some of the equipment in here. So that's the food grade. As far as technology in here, there's a lot of manual hands-on, even in the industry. You know, it says, this is an overview of what we do, not so much tied to broadband applications, but some of the testing we do here. The big thing now too is Kernza. So if you've heard about Kernza, Kernza beer, Kernza spirits, that's the big one. But we don't have any.
This malted right here.
There, we work with Gerard Malting up in Shakopee. Kernza is an
You got a hole in the
annual.
bag.
Oh,
I see some. Yeah.
Dropping out
Somewhere.
somewhere.
Kernza is a perennial, so instead of growing wheat, they
There you
have to seed year after year. You seed that once, and it'll keep growing. Yep.
And it's got super deep roots.
Super deep
It's
roots.
supposed to be really.
So that's why you want it. You can use it as a cover crop or a long-term crop.
So it's a big part of no-till.
A big part of no-till. And Patagonia,
Oh, okay.
Patagonia has invested so much money into Kernza and Kernza production because it has a low carbon intensity score. You're not tilling the soil every year, you're not planting it every year, it just keeps coming back. But it's a lot smaller. But one of the things you have to do if you want to use it in beer is we worked with RAR to actually malt it, sprout it like they do barley, and then you stop it, and that gives you a lot of flavor and brewing. We also had a fun project with the hops growers in the state, and we have quite a few of them. But that's a whole nother story. All right. One of the things with hops, I do gotta share this, is years ago they used that loose leaf hop, or like a bud, as if you pick it. Well then, when they brew their batches, everybody wanted to go to a pelleted hop. And you have to be careful pelleting hops that you don't get it too hot because you destroy the lupulin that gives it that IPA flavor. And I don't really like IPAs, but everybody uses hops for flavor. So we had an initiative where we worked with all the hops growers, we brought them in, did a small demo on pelleting, because that's what the industry wanted. And yeah, that was a fun project. But, all right,
And the university has done a lot of work, the hybriding hops.
with the hybrids,
Yes,
yep.
I know.
Charlie.
Yeah.
Not Charlie. It is Charlie over there, I think.
I know I visited with Michael out at Half Pint Brewery because he's got a few hops out there, and I think he's hooked in there to, he's been learning all kinds of things.
Because S-Rock here in Waseca, you're coughing too. You know what that's from?
No.
You notice we just started coughing?
Yeah.
Sorry guys, we should have warned you, the window's open. We put that epoxy floor down. It hasn't totally cleared yet. So we're still catching that. We'll both walk out of there and it's like, it should kill you. It's from the floor still. And
It goes away eventually.
we had that in the other lab too. So if you put an epoxy floor in your garage, air the thing out. So as you can see, a lot of different equipment, from mixers. We're going to be doing some work with Stable Feeds. They're a feed company over in Casson. Here's what's unique about them. They produce a unique horse feed, but this isn't your Purina horse feed. It's going to your Olympic horses, high-end markets. They cannot keep up with the demand. Bruce Springsteen's daughter, her horse, and it's coming out of Minnesota and it started here. So we'll be doing a lot of the mixing, and then as we walk down here, a lot of prototyping. So even though we got more room, you can see why we needed it. You push things back, you get in a load of totes, you work on the next project, they go out, then you bring in the next project. It's organized chaos, and we are looking for additional staff because the two of us will keep running. But a couple pieces of equipment here. I got about 5 minutes and you should be driving. So we're always over at S-Rock, but here's our pellet mill. Nothing stays so busy. That's probably one of the busiest pieces of equipment that we have in the pilot lab. So, when you make a feed pellet, when you make pellet fuels, that was a big thing 10, 15, 20 years ago when wood was expensive. Can we use ag fibers for biomass heating? And we worked with large companies, even like Duluth Steam. When you come down into Canal Park, Duluth Steam is right to the right. They're kind of locked in. I don't think they intended to be there. But they're right on the harbor. You got shipping. They were looking at using the oat fines. When they load the barges, you end up with screenings and fines. Can you combust that with the coal that they're using in Canal Park to supply the city with steam? And then a lot of the excess heat is using to heat the hotel water, the water for the hotels down there.
Because they have centralized heating in the city of
In the
Duluth,
city.
in the downtown area. So it isn't business or hotel by hotel generating their own heat. They have a big citywide system that does it. Yeah.
It is so amazing. That's a
It
great
is.
thing to clarify.
Yes.
And I'll talk about it. So underground, you have steam lines, and keep in mind steam, think of maintaining those lines because it expands and contracts and they can't break. They share a steam system for heat. But pellet fuels, fertilizers, the cat litter that I showed you, that actually starts in a pellet. And then we have just a number of pellet dyes. So you'll see those dyes. Too bad I don't have one on there. It's good for weightlifting because they're probably 100 to 160 pounds a piece. See the dyes in the different shapes? They go on the front of this pellet mill. So depending on what you're producing, it requires a different dye and a different dye thickness. So people will want us to tell them, okay, what's the optimum grind size? How much steam do we need to make this pellet? And then what size dye? Because if you mess up and you get it wrong, these holes will get so hard that you have to use a cement bit to drill them out, or else you'll break them. And they'd rather have us break our $3,500 dyes instead of their $18,000 dyes. Because you take somebody like American Crystal, they'll have 3, that's a 60 horse pellet mill, they'll have 3 250 horse pellet mills that run. The data we get from it, we can scale up and it'll work the same on their machines. Otherwise, they're going to be calling and saying, "Al, you messed up." You know, we don't want that. But just so many examples that I can't even begin to touch on, because pelleting is involved in a lot of things, not just making feed. So, and over here we have our hammer mill and grinders, you know, to process material and finer particles. Here we have a small dryer, a fluidized bed dryer. Keep in mind, we just got this all in here. So we're frantically racing to get, I think we're 23 projects behind on this equipment. Yeah. So, and that's only over a 3-month period, 4 months. But here's a little dryer where people have a lot of times byproducts, co-products, a waste product. They're high in moisture, so to add value, you got to get rid of the moisture. Sometimes you can, it's economical to dry it, sometimes it just isn't. So then you look at, can you make it into a compost? And we have a lot of large composting projects. Can you turn it into something else? Can you run it into a digester? If it's too expensive to get rid of that moisture and find a higher value. But on this machine, what's unique is we can dry different material at different temps, whether you want to talk Fahrenheit or Celsius, let's go Fahrenheit. Say at 200, at 300, at 350, you can look at drying time curves. You can look at how much energy does it take, because even though it's electrical energy, you can flip that back to if you have propane or natural gas, what would it cost you? But then you can look at the sample and say, okay, at those temps, if it's a food product, did you damage the protein? You know, the digestible protein. A lot of cool information comes off of this little machine. We have a larger drum dryer coming. That's just not here yet. And then, over here, this little machine, this is in the way, but you gotta check this out. And it's clean. It's clean here. Good idea. Come over and stick your head in. If it was running, we wouldn't have you even come close to this thing. But look at this. You'll see the little, watch out for the spikes on the end. But you'll see the spikes and then you'll see the fingers on top. This is for decorticating flax and hemp that I talked to you about, hemp fiber. So you put the fiber sticks in here. Basically, you break the sticks apart, and then it gets drug in here, and those fingers are tearing that fiber and the hurd away from it. The hurd drops out, the good fiber comes out the end. You repeat it. We've got a, I'm just jumping because I know we're, sorry I'm talking fast.
That's good.
So much stuff to share. We got a cool project right now with MnDOT, and we worked with 3 manufacturing companies of erosion control mats, utilizing hemp fiber in erosion control products. So when you go up on 94, like you're heading to St. Cloud, Min Road has a big road test facility up there. So we were up there 2 weeks ago. So they're looking at hemp fibers and hydroseeding mulches that you spray on, and then the erosion control mats. But the biggest thing was too, can we make yarns out of hemp fiber? Because it's like linen and flax. You know, years ago your linen was all made from flax. It's super tough. Because they want to get rid of the fine plastic netting that's holding that straw or the hemp or the wood together. Because nobody's going back and picking that up.
Yep.
And then what we'd like to do, if you look out here where Excel's building, like when you leave, sorry I pointed that way, outside, you'll see those black fencing made from plastic to stop erosion. Making those out of a fiber like hemp. And we were working with the USDA textile group down in Louisiana, and we were gonna get our spools of hemp thread made, and after COVID, it was 2 years after, they just never seemed to get back to work. It just took them a while.
Yeah.
So we didn't get that done, but they still make jute netting. So that anything that's coming out of MnDOT is jute. Plastic's gone.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, look how clean that is. That's from the open house. You can tell, usually this is covered with dust. It's just a dust bomb in here. And that's why we have,
Yes, perfect.
that's why we have the curtains. But, all right.
Thank you,
Didn't
sir.
really talk about broadband, talked about AURI, but it ties.
Yeah.
We don't function without it.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. The
You're
business
transmitting
doesn't
a lot of
function.
data, right?
That's all we do.
Yeah, yeah.
And
that
always
requires
communicating, and that's why, and we're in rural Minnesota. We don't have to move to the cities or be by the cities to get to the clients. You know,
But
and
you
working
do
with
have that
them.
broadband.
Yeah. No, but what's nuts is,
Yeah.
the calls with Denmark, the calls with different universities, you aren't to say names, around the U.S., that's how we function. And that's what brings clients in here too. You know, our focus is Minnesota first. Minnesota companies, Minnesota commodities, but then to help generate income, those that are out of state, they actually pay more for our services, just to keep it fair. One key thing that you should know, years ago our services were at no charge. If you were a Minnesota resident, producer, farmer, business, we had to change that just because of cost. But to keep it fair, if you're an entrepreneur or startup company making less than $500,000 a year, you only pay 20% of our fee. If you're making under, where's the next cut? $2 million a year, you pay 33%. $5 million, you're at 50%. Anything over 5, it's 100. But that way, you talk about equity. Whether you're a startup or whether you're a well-established company, and you know them in Minnesota, you pay different. And it's amazing. There's large companies you would think have their own R&D lab, and some where their R&D budget for a day is probably what we operate on for a year, and we'll get calls from them. So that's always kind of fun. You know, you're in Waseca and people have no idea. No idea. All right.
We're very
Thank you.
we're very proud of our of what happens here and the innovation that happens here that benefits people around the world, literally. Yeah.
Because with alfalfa research, we were working with groups in Germany, in Europe. What I think we should do someday, and we do it once in a while with Ag Innovation News, but make a list of all the products or improved processes that have come out of AURI. Make sure you have permission to share them, and we do. Well, that's a touchy thing. But people would be amazed. And then you can't talk about it half the time, you know. But,
I was at a global meeting at the University of Chicago a month ago.
Yep.
And AURI came up several times.
you are
Yeah,
kidding.
because people know products are coming out of here.
What was it on? Digestion?
Well, it was on nutrition, and I was doing the public health and safety stuff.
That's
And
amazing.
Coming on up in the dialogue. 600 people in the room.
That is incredible, and that's what we want. You know, we've been around for over 30 years. You know, we were at the annex building there since almost our inception, which would have been in the late 80s, because we came out of the Great